we're going to jump right in here because we're very, very excited. We have got once in a lifetime opportunity here to interview this young man. We're really excited about it. And if you're from the Bloomington area, you may already know who this is because you've probably seen him out and about, especially if you've been at an IU basketball, football game, what have you. He's an IU alum, and also a huge fan of the Hoosiers. And speaking of Hoosiers, he was also the screenwriter and producer of the movie Hoosiers, and many other movies, and some upcoming ones.
You seem excited.
I'm really excited to talk to Angelo Pizzo, our guest today. Angelo, thank you for coming in.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So exciting to have you here. So we're just going to jump right in. I kind of gave you a bit of an intro, but didn't want to spill the beans too much, so to speak. So you were raised in Bloomington, but you were born in Chicago. How long were you in Chicago before you actually came to your family moved here?
So my dad was in medical school at the University of Chicago, and he was doing his internship when he married my mother, and who was also a University of Chicago student. And I was born a year and a half later, and when he was doing his residency at Northwestern, we lived in Wilmette for a year and a half or two, and then he started looking for jobs. And it was down to, I remember it was back and forth between Cadillac, Michigan, and Bloomington, Indiana. And my mother really liked Cadillac a lot more. But the reason my dad wanted Bloomington was the fact of the university. He wanted to teach. He was a pathologist. And he, in addition to his practice, he also is interested in teaching in the medical school, which was in Bloomington at the time. And the other thing that reason my mother resisted is there had not been any pathologist in Bloomington before him. So he was the first pathologist hired. There was no laboratory, so he had to set up the laboratory. And so we arrived in Bloomington in 1951. Yeah, 3 years. It was actually about 3 years after.
Very interesting. Now, do you have siblings?
I do. I have 6 brothers and sisters.
Oh, wow.
I'm the oldest of 7.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's a big family.
It is indeed.
Wow. And brothers and sisters live around here at all still? Or?
One brother, one sister live here. The rest are spread all over the country.
Okay. All right. So speaking of all over the country, so you were raised in Bloomington. You went to University High School. You graduated from University High School. Is that what I read?
I did.
Yeah.
And let me just go back.
Oh, sure. Yes,
in terms
please.
of the chronology, because I think what I'm about to tell you has some context for what happened to me the rest of my life. The first house that my father and mother either bought or rented, I don't remember exactly what it was at the time, was on the corner of 7th and Jordan.
Okay, yep.
And it wasn't part of the university then, although there was some housing on the same street, Teeter. And I was literally a block and a half away from the old field house.
Oh, wow.
And a block away from the old stadium.
Yeah, sure.
Where Memorial Stadium, where IU played football. So from the very beginning, Indiana football and Indiana basketball became part of my indoctrination. It was ingrained in my blood. I would go to practice to watch the basketball and football teams on a regular basis, much more so basketball because it was indoors in the winter and so on, to the point where when I was like 6 or 7, I became like a little mascot of the team. And they'd bring me on the floor, and I would help rebound when they had free throw practice.
Nice.
And I remember some of the people who were, really, really nice to me. And just coincidentally, the person who was the nicest to me, and also I think it was around 10 or 11 at the time, who happened to be the Big Ten Player of the Year, was a player named Gary Long. And he was he was Big Ten MVP in I think 59. I ended up hiring his son, coincidentally, because we didn't put it all together, and that's not why this was favoritism when we were hiring the kids for Hoosiers. So his son played Buddy.
Oh, you're kidding!
Talk about full circle.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, the other player I remember who wasn't really, he was very shy, but he was unlike any other player I could ever remember before or since, was Jimmy Rail. I mean, Jimmy Rail was the greatest shooter I've ever seen.
Right.
And I would watch him practice and hit shot after shot after shot after shot like he was a metronome. But one of the unusual things about Jimmy is he was called the Splendid Splinter. He must have weighed like 140 pounds. I mean, that guy, he was the thinnest player I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And again, getting back to the full circle, is we hired his son to be part of an opposing team.
Neat.
And Jimmy would show up, and of course we would have shooting contests, in between shots. He never lost, all these kids, who, I mean, he was by that time 40 or something, and all these hotshot kids, they thought they could whip him. Nobody could touch him.
Even then.
Even then. Oh, yeah. I mean, guys like him and Rick Mount, once you become, that is who you are, and it becomes part of your life and your identity, I don't think you ever stop practicing. I think Rick Mount was shooting at free throws in his 70s.
Oh, wow.
At any rate, I'm sorry to mention somebody from Purdue.
No.
But,
Well, at least he's a legend.
but getting back to that particular...
We can edit that out.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Getting back to that particular time, Indiana University's campus became my playground.
That is so cool.
I would just... I mean, I knew it. I knew every inch of that campus because I was on my bikes flying around here and there, and of course the Little 500 was really important. That was only a block away from us, and it was my dream to be in the Little 500. And we used to create these little bike races of our own, among my friends. We didn't realize how much training it actually took, but that's another story.
Wow.
But in terms of University High School, when I went there, it was a total lab school. That is, there were cameras in every room, and they were called the guinea pigs at one time.
Really?
Yeah, because it was part of the education department in the education school. And we always were taught in different experimental ways. And
that's
it was
interesting.
very,
I did not
very,
know that.
very progressive.
So it was actually tied to the university.
It was part of the university.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. It
that's
was
interesting.
very, very much part of the university. And I just remember it was different than other people's experience, especially those at Bloomington High School and the other grade schools around town. But it was a phenomenal experience, and so many of my friends were sons and daughters of professors and people connected to the university. And of course, it was almost like a prep school because of that. You didn't have to talk about the importance of education to these kids because their parents were in the business of education. Right. I mean, the amount of national merit scholars and the kids that went to Ivy schools was beyond any high school in Indiana, not even close. Wow. Because it was a unique environment. Well, that all changed when it became Bloomington North and South, and they initially moved out to the bypass, and they started to separate from the university. But that's a whole nother story.
That's really interesting. I had no idea
I didn't either.
that University High School was that. I never knew it was tied to. I mean, I knew it was called University High School, but I didn't realize it was tied to the university. So you went on to Indiana University.
I did.
Now, I found interesting. I've been on your Wikipedia page, Angelo. Just so
I'm sure there are. I don't know who does those things, but I think
everybody
does.
That's why I'm hoping that most of it's right, but we'll find out. Yeah. But so you went to IU and you actually got a poli-sci major. Or you're a poli-sci major is what you got your degree in, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And so, how did we get from poli-sci? Well, actually, I already know. This is the part of the story that was my absolute favorite part of the story, if this is true. So tell me if it is. So you had a degree in a political science and were going to be a lawyer, but your dad told you to instead do something that you would love or would make you happy instead. And so you went to film school in California. Is that kind of how the story went?
That is the very Reader's Digest, sanitized version of it. There's a lot more to it than that.
Sure.
I would say the single most important external event that happened in my life was the Vietnam War. Vietnam War changed my whole attitude about it, and my goal was not to be a lawyer. I mean, I was considering getting a law degree, but my area of specialty was in world politics or international relations.
Okay.
And my parents were very involved in politics at the time, and my dad and mom, very progressive Democrats, and the Birch Bayh and his family were good friends of ours. And Birch promised, and I was head of his campaign in 1968 on campus.
Yeah, no kidding.
On IU's campus, and I was my plan was to go to get a. It was initially the law degree, but then I changed my mind. I was going to get a master's in international relations or world politics at one of three universities that I applied to, which was Georgetown, George Washington, or American University. And one of these schools, and I was going to work as a page in the Senate because politics was fascinating to me, and I wanted to help, be part of his senatorial staff at one time. And if I got a master's degree, I had straight in there. But the war changed everything, and I became very anti-government, anti-war, and to a point where I became disenchanted with the whole idea and the whole plan, to the point where I focused most of my last year not on not on my work and my school, but in putting together a brief that was 96 pages long, trying to file to become a conscientious objector, and from a non-religious point of view, and from an ethical and moral point of view. And I knew I was one of many thousands that were trying to do this, and very few got the designation. But in fact, because I got, I think the support of my father and my minister, and also the mayor wrote letters of support. And I did a lot of research. Probably my best writing up to that point was, and I got the CO designation. Wow. Yeah. So, yeah, that was, and just to summarize the next 2 years, how would I best put this in the most benign way? As a CO, you are obligated to serve 2 years in alternative service. And I got a job doing that in Syracuse, New York. But in those days, you were called to duty and in alignment with being a CO as an alignment into being in the draft number that you got from the lottery. And my draft number was 192, and they got to 189 in my draft board area.
Oh, wow.
If that had not happened, I would have been, lecturing about, the Middle East crisis to Rotary clubs in Syracuse during that time, service organizations.
Sure.
And so I was suddenly free from everything. And what I did was my good friend David Anspaugh, who directed Hoosiers and Rudy, was in Aspen skiing a season, and I just joined him. And I was there for a year, and then I went to Hawaii and surfed for a season or two. I was there for about a year, and it was at that time where I started to just realize that I was avoiding growing up. And that's when I came home, and I was struggling to figure out what I wanted to do and what I should do, and I didn't want to go back into political science or get a law degree or anything like that. And my father challenged me, what do I love? What is it that you care about? What is it that you would want to be part of on a day-to-day basis? What would you want to get up every morning and look forward to doing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I said, I only have one thing that I care about, but I always thought of it as an avocation, not a vocation. That was film. That was movies. I always had a passion for film, and I went to every film when I was a kid that came to town practically. And so he said, I will support you trying to figure out how to follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell said. And I was very, very fortunate because I really had no background in film to apply. I found out, and this was my way in. I didn't think I was creative enough or I had the ability to be a filmmaker at all. But growing up in a college town, and this was sort of, my dad and I came to this conclusion: if you care about something, you can get a degree in it and teach it. So I went to the head of comparative literature here at IU. That's where the film classes were. That's the academic film classes, not the filmmaking classes. And asked him, how would one go about getting a job? Because I love Bloomington. I was thinking I'd be great to come back and teach here. And he told me that there were 3 schools that gave PhDs in the academic approach to film. They were NYU, UCLA, and USC. I applied to all 3, and I miraculously got into USC.
Wow!
I did. It was probably the interview that did it, because I had prepped for that interview for 3 months before. I read every day everything I could because I wanted to just dazzle them. And
sounds like you did.
Even though I didn't have I had no film to show. I only took 1 film class in college, and then my GPA was just really mediocre because I kind of blew off a couple of years in college. I got in, and that sort of changed everything.
The trajectory of your life. I love that. So we're going to pick it up here. We got to take a quick break and hear from our partners, but then we're going to come back and we're going to pick this story up from there, because that's when we really find out about all the movies you love and that you've watched that you might not even know he's involved in. This is Angelo Pizzo, our guest today on WCSM's General Store. We'll be right back.
Let your local Farmers Insurance agent Christine Flynn put her experience to work for you. Christine Flynn proudly serves Monroe, Lawrence, and Greene County families and businesses and is ready to review your existing policies or provide a no-obligation quote today. Call Christine Flynn at 812-822-2905 to get smarter about your insurance. Again, that's Christine Flynn at 812-822-2905. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We are farmers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
Underwritten by Farmers Truck Fire Insurance Exchanges and Affiliates. Products not available in every state.
Buy Now Closeouts, located at 3478 West 3rd Street in Bloomington. Buy Now Closeouts has everything you could possibly need for a remodel or new build. Vanities, sinks, faucets, in a wide selection of all shapes and sizes. Washers, dryers, cabinets, fixtures, everything at discount prices. Gas ranges, electric stovetops, huge slashes on name brand items. Need flooring? You'll find stacks of it. Everything you need for your bathroom, kitchen, and dining areas. Buy Now Closeouts. You've got to check this out before you go anywhere else. New items arriving weekly and our inventory changes all the time, so stop in and see what's in stock for you. Buy Now Closeouts at 3478 West 3rd Street, behind Crew Car Wash. Don't buy later, buy now.
Technology has become more complicated and is becoming more cost prohibitive to hire the in-house talent that you need to keep your business secure and running smoothly. The AME Group can help. Outsourcing the management of your business technology gives you access to a broad range of technical expertise for less than hiring directly. AME offers managed IT services including proactive monitoring, preventative maintenance, software management, device management, and 24/7 network support to keep your technology consistent and reliable. The AME Group has been servicing the local area for over 35 years. Give Orion a call at 812-320-0389 for a free on-site assessment for your business today.
But when the time came.
When I did start writing a movie about Indiana, I kept in mind, there's no way I'm going to give this thing up to anybody else except me or somebody from Indiana.
Right. I love that. That's awesome. Welcome back to a conversation at the General Store with Angelo Pizzo, and screenwriter, producer, and director. You've done all of them. I didn't, I guess, realize really screenwriter is screenwriting like writing. Is that your passion, or do you like the whole process of making a film that you've been involved in?
Oh, I hate writing.
Oh, you do?
I do. I find writing painful, awful. It's just miserable.
So that's just basically an ends to a mean, like, or means to an end. Like you write it so you can go and make the film.
Yeah. I mean, what I do is I create the movie in my mind and I transcribe it. But that part of the process is really difficult because I'm working just in my own head.
Yeah.
And I can get my own way and second guess and it's torturous. It's just being in your own room writing for 4-5 months at a time is so different than actually gathering a group of people who give you feedback and energy and new ideas and make the sum of the parts bigger than I'm making the whole bigger than the sum of the parts. So I really enjoy making movies. All the pre-production, the production, the post-production. I just don't like writing.
No kidding.
Yeah. In fact,
I would have lost that bet.
Yeah, I would have thought you would have. The screenwriting would have been like, oh yes, they're my babies, and then no. Okay.
No. He needs a minute to think about.
There's a little grimace there.
I saw that.
So yeah, it's a lonely profession, and again, when you're doing something creative. It's not like you're putting together, algorithms or you're a mathematician or this is a technology writing or something. You're trying to create magic on a blank piece of paper, and because I work and have worked in the genre system. There's been how many sports movies have been made?
Yeah.
How do I not just make another mediocre sports movie? And your goal is to always do something different, but honors the genre and services the expectations and conventions of the genre, but create magic. That's really what the best artists do. They're magicians in a certain kind of way. And it's one of the reasons why writing, to me, can't be taught. I mean, you can teach structure, you can teach certain aspects of it, but I don't write sports movies anymore. For example, I supervise them, If the story interests me, then I will find another writer. But I can't guarantee they'll come out the way in which I would do it. And if when I go into writing a story, I need to know that the idea has to be compelling enough for me to want to see it as a moviegoer.
A finished movie or film.
Well, it has to induce me, at least, or seduce me to want to pay money. I would buy this if somebody else made it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it has to have enough of an opportunity to create emotional moments. Where I can feel something, and authentically feel it, and not in a kind of artificial way. And the third thing it has to have a great ending. I'm not going to do any story without a great ending. But other than that, when I go into a story, I'm sort of like, let me put it. The other metaphor is I'm in the Himalayas, and I may have climbed. A couple of mountains. Every mountain is different, and I don't know if I can make it at the top. I don't know if I'm going to just, flatline, if this is just going to be crazy. But one of the things that's different for me than other writers, a lot of writers work, and this is especially if they take a lot of screenwriting classes or function this way, is they set up all of these very specific outlines. I'm going to have character A come into scene 3 and then reappear in scene 10. Well, that's like moving puzzle pieces around, and that's writing from the outside in. I tried that once, and it didn't work at all. So what I do is I write from the inside out. I write from, if you think of the chakra system, a lot of writers, the outliners, I call them, write from the head and the neck. I write from my gut and my heart. And so I write from a
Which
feeling.
I think you can see
totally.
that in your films.
Totally.
But the thing is about writing from outlines is you have all these kind of like perfectly symmetrical storylines, sub-characters that worked all these, this, it is like an algorithm. You work this stuff out based on previous movies, and you've seen movies like that. They're soulless, especially studio films, because what happens with studio films that are what I call overdeveloped is you have at least 10 or 15 people in jobs called development or executive jobs whose entire meaning is to give notes. And what are they going to do? They're going to give notes to make it the most homogenized, the most define the most common denominator aspect of writing that movie. Whatever is special and unique and weird, they're going to, they'll want to get rid of it. I'm going to live and die about my choices about how to make this movie. And if it sucks, it's on me.
Right.
If it's good, it's on me. Right. One way or another, I'm not going to blame somebody else. So we
just want to touch on, obviously, you surely have figured this out by now, Hoosiers, also the movie Rudy, and then also, not that Hoosiers and Rudy were not fantastic, but my family's absolute favorite Angelo Pizzo film was My All-American. I can hardly say it without crying because that movie was so incredible. Just what an incredible story, and just your delivery of it, and so moving. It's just one of our favorite movies. But so what is Hoosiers your favorite? Or, I mean, do you love all of them? You know what I mean? Like, do you have a heart for one a little bit more than the others that you've done, or?